I consider the Cotton Campaign and the Uzbek Forum for Human Rights to be great organizations that work tirelessly to improve the lives of the people of Uzbekistan, to end child and forced labor in the cotton fields and free the Uzbek people from the curse of forced labor that they suffered for decades. In the first years when I started my monitoring child and forced labor in the cotton fields of Uzbekistan was widespread, systematic, and government orchestrated. Every year at the beginning of the September, markets, schools and hospitals in Uzbekistan were closed in all regions, and signs saying all in cotton fields were hung on their doors. In September, Uzbek school children and university students had to be in the cotton fields with their teachers for more than 2 months, depriving them of their education. The full impact of this dreadful policy on educational standards can still be felt today. Doctors and nurses were also forced to go to the cotton fields, endangering the care of the patients. The situation in state-owned organizations was equally dire, and employees who refused to pick cotton would face the pressures, the harassment, the threats of dismissal from their jobs, non-payment of salaries, and problems with their boss. Farmers, on the other hand, were obliged to take a certain number of pickers to the fields to meet cotton quotas set by the state. Otherwise, they would come under pressure from the tax or the government authorities. The situation affected all areas of Uzbek society, and state-led systematic forced labor in cotton industry seemed to last a lifetime. The population had already gotten used to this system that had been going on 4 years, and forced labor in cotton picking had become a habit for them. Mass media and propaganda reinforced the notion that they were contributing to the welfare of the state. Slogans such as "the cotton is our wealth" or "the cotton is our national value" were instilled in the minds of the people so that they stopped questioning the legality of the system or defending their rights. There were no reports on the consequences of the child labor or the forced labor, some of which result in deaths in the cotton fields. Young girls became the victims of the violence. Many children were poisoned by the chemicals. That serious health problems were observed. 10 years ago, when I received an offer to work with the Uzbek Forum, I had just graduated from the university and started teaching at the school. Since I was 20 years old, that is a school pupil, then the university student, and then school teacher, I had to participate in the cotton harvest every year in autumn. And not only I, but everyone I know was that extremely dissatisfied with this system. Since my mother also was the farmer, I remembered very well that the farmers were sitting in the meetings at night in the local authority called Hakimiyat and in the cotton fields during the day, and the rights of the farmers were violated openly. Even once my mother was imprisoned for a day because she didn't fulfill the state cotton plan. It's very painful to remember those days and the suffering of the farmers. But there was no one to listen to our complaint, and people were even afraid to speak, to talk about the problems openly. And activists who raised certain issues would face the severe harassment pressures from the authorities. The Uzbek people needed a courageous organization that would actively highlight the situation of human rights violations in the country and raise the public awareness of these problems. Uzbek Forum has done just that. They established contact with independent activists and journalists operating in different regions of Uzbekistan and formed a reliable team. They organized trainings for activists on national and international standards on labor law so that they could become labor rights monitors. One of the main achievements was that the monitors of the Uzbek Forum were composed of local journalists and activists, because ordinary people, the residents of the village, did not want to speak or they give interviews on problems to strangers due to fear or the pressures or the harassment. And since the monitors were local activists, the people knew them well and didn't hesitate to tell them about the problems. Otherwise, it would be difficult to get the reliable information. This monitoring approach of the Uzbek Forum gave expected results, and an interview with victims of forced labor was achieved and confidentiality of the respondents was ensured. The monitors managed to interview hundreds of the victims of child and forced labor in the cotton fields every year in the fall. On the basis of these facts and information, through advocacy with the cotton campaign, awareness about these problems was raised at the national and international level, and influence mechanisms were developed to eliminate them. As a result, after the change of president in 2016, the serious change began in Uzbekistan, and President Mirziyoyev demonstrated his political will to eliminate forced labor in cotton fields. Gradually, the number of victims of forced labor in the cotton fields decreased, and this was also noted in the reports of the Uzbek Forum. In my opinion, it's very important to continue the efforts of the Uzbek Forum and the cotton campaign to ensure the protects of the labor rights in agriculture sector, and I hope that the reforms started by the President of Uzbekistan will continue in all sectors, and ordinary people could feel the results of the liberal reforms. Thank you.